By the way, you got to admit, right? Like, not a bad ticker.
Not a bad ticker.
LOVE.
Way better than SAC.
Hey guys, we are back with episode 30 of the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast. I am Sean D. Nelson, founder of Lovesac, and we have the most incredible Shawnism to explore today with an even more incredible guest. We're going to be talking about only buy things you love. Why are we talking about buying? Listen, we are all consumers. All of us, every single one of us, constantly buying, especially in this day and age. Have you ever taken a step back before you bought something and thought to yourself, why am I even buying this? Am I buying it because I really want it, need it? Or am I buying it because like someone else thinks that I should have this? Is it better to save money on this thing? Or is it better to just buy the best thing, buy the right thing one time and maybe save money in the long run by not having to buy it again? Do I even really know why I buy anything, or am I just driven by every whim and want? Right? These are questions we're going to explore with finance guru Vivian 2, my rich BFF. With us today is a personal finance investing phenom, a person I have come to really appreciate and look forward to popping into my feed on Insta, on YouTube, not just because she is my rich BFF, but giving all the good advice, but because she does it with so much down-to-earth candor in plain and optimistic language, breaking down a topic that is often handled with so much snobbery that it generates some awkwardness and fills so many of us with insecurity. A former JP Morgan stock trader, she is not only an expert on trading, but saving, investing, and managing your money. She is also just a generally likable, lovable, and motivational in her approach. I mean, she's literally wrote the book on this out this year, New York Times bestseller. It's called Rich AF, our own rich BFF, Ms. Vivian 2.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
Oh man, so great to be with you. I took down your whole book in one sitting, and now I feel like you really are like my
we
friends.
are besties.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like you wrote every word.
Yeah.
It's your voice. I listened to it. So I loved hearing your voice. And now I get to
Oh my God,
here.
I did voices for the audiobook. I hope you enjoyed them.
Oh my, I did. I caught that. And it's grueling, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? Because I got to record my audiobook, and my book is actually quite short. I mean, that's work.
Yeah.
Right.
That was like 2 days, 2 8-hour days of just nonstop talking. They were like, go home, don't talk to anybody, drink a lot of tea with honey, and sit in silence. I was like, okay, cool. Got it.
Yeah. I remember after like a session just being so like scrambled.
Yeah.
It's wild. You know, you got to keep your energy up. You're in some weird little box somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, and it's this tiny box, and you're like super hot, and it's like a little stuffy in there. But you know what? Listening back, I don't really like how it sounds.
Oh, yeah?
Because I don't know if you feel this way, but sometimes listening to your own voice, especially for too long, you're like, ugh. But other people tell me they really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. No, I think you definitely have a voice for radio, face for TV. Careful with that.
Yeah. Got to make sure you get that right.
I got it right. And I enjoyed it a lot. It's a great book. I love, and look, I'm a CEO of a public company.
Yeah.
I still learned things. I still enjoyed. It made me think about a lot of things that I'm doing and things I'm doing for my family, my kids.
Yeah.
So it's cool because it's a book I feel like everyone should read. It was wild as I contemplated the idea that we don't learn this stuff in school, yet we're expected to operate in the financial world no matter what, you know, from the time we're an adult onward.
Isn't that so weird,
you know?
that like in your home, right? You're like, Mom, Dad, how much do you make? And they're like, oh, little Timmy, don't ask that.
Right.
That's rude.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And then fast forward to the teens, you're like, Mom, Dad, like how much does our house cost? And they're like, Minnie Joanne, don't ask that.
Yeah,
That's
don't tell
rude.
your friends.
Don't tell your friends. Yeah,
Yeah.
like whatever. And then like suddenly you turn 18, you go to college, if you go to college, or you turn 21 and or 22 and you're out of college, and they're like, how do you not know how to file a tax return,
Right.
you idiot? And it's like, when would I have gotten that information?
What did I miss?
Right. Like, I feel like we skipped ahead a few seasons and I did
Yeah.
not watch the recap. So
Yeah.
like, it's really frustrating to me. And like a huge part of why Your Rich BFF I think is so important is like, this information I truly believe should be federally mandated as part of a graduation requirement, but it's not. And in the meantime, I'm going to teach as many people who are willing to listen.
You are the Department of Financial
Personal
Knowledge.
finance,
I love
yeah.
it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and you're doing a great job, and you cover everything. It's wild,
Yeah.
and it's cool because I think you've had to really, I don't know, put yourself back in those shoes because you're a trained stock trader.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's funny is I reflect on this sometimes. The first look, I think I started a 401k sometime when Lovesac got reasonably,
Yeah.
of a reasonable size, but I never like looked at it right. The first stock I ever owned outright was my own.
Yeah.
It was it was love.
Yeah.
And by the way, you got to admit, right? Like, not a bad ticker.
Not a bad ticker.
LOVE.
Way better than SAC.
I don't know. No, yeah, we're really proud of that ticker and proud to bring a little love to Wall Street. But but I had so much to learn, and here I am going to public company conferences facing bankers and analysts like yourself back in the day, and everything I've learned in the last 7 years since coming public, I've learned in this seat.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I love what you do. I love all the content you create. Everyone out there needs to check out Vivian too on any pick a
platform. I'm everywhere.
Platform. She's everywhere. Millions of followers and amazing content regardless of where you are at any level in life.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to turn my son on to, he doesn't have Instagram yet. I'm not going to but
don't, by the way.
Yeah, but
you got to delay that.
He can get into YouTube. So I'm going to turn him on to you. I'll talk about this in a minute. He runs my portfolio.
Really?
Well, I have a few buckets anyway. Well,
this is the fun portfolio.
Oh, it's so cool. I'll come back to that because before I go too far down that rabbit hole, I want to introduce this topic. I want to kind of turn us to today.
Yeah.
And then we can wander wherever. But only buy things you love.
Yeah.
After listening to your book and your example of the Prada bag that you saved for, and then the few others.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much in there that I want to kind of tease out and probably other opportunities to just talk about this topic because it's something that I'm super passionate about.
Yeah.
And I know that seems like a weird thing, but I'm currently working on my second book. Mm-hmm. I won't reveal the title yet. I'm really proud of it. I think you'll like it. It's Vivian Too Irreverent. But it's going to be some kind of excoriation on planned obsolescence. Mm-hmm. Everything we own is built to be garbage.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always that way. And how do we get here? And why can't we get better stuff?
Yeah.
And at Lovesac, we're very proud that we make stuff you could have the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But it's a big investment. I know that you're familiar with Lovesac,
Mm-hmm.
but our couches could be 10, 15, 20 grand. You can upgrade them forever though. And I'm really proud of that. So this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And in fact, I'm going to write a whole book about it, believe it or not, if you can fathom that and how people can buy better.
Yeah.
So they can buy less.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to, with a finance expert, get into that a little bit because you had a lot to say on that topic. And so without thinking too hard, when I share that with you, only buy things you love.
Yeah.
What comes to mind?
I think the way that we have started buying has dramatically changed from buying what we love back in the day to buying what other people think we should have. And this is why I am so anti your son getting on social media for as long as humanly possible.
For sure.
Because I do think that the viewership that we have available to us now is not good for our mental health.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, like we were all limited by proximity. So like the keeping up with the Joneses was you literally looking out your front door with like your little binoculars and you're like, oh, the Joneses got a flat screen TV or they got a new station wagon, what have you.
Yeah.
But like you were limited by the neighborhoods you could get into based on how much you made. And the people around you roughly made the same amount of money as you and had roughly the same aspirations and roughly the same type of stuff, what have you.
Yeah.
But now on social media, I can suddenly see the inside of Kim K's private jet.
Isn't that wild?
I will never have Kim K private jet money. And I don't think I need Kim K private jet money to be happy and to like live an incredible life.
Yeah.
But suddenly when I'm seeing the inside of what that looks like, I'm like, well, that looks really a lot nicer than whatever commercial airline I'm flying. Like, why don't I have that?
And now you start seeing, by the way, some of your other influencer peers
yes,
posing outside their private jet,
but it's
or
also
some
like,
private jet.
Yeah, and it's like some fake LA private jet rented for 30 minutes for a photo shoot.
Yeah.
It's like such crap. But like the problem with that is like, I feel like now we are spending money that we don't have to buy stuff we don't need, to impress people we don't even like.
Yeah.
And you want to show off. And that's kind of like back to my book, Rich AF, with like the bag analogy is like when I bought my first designer bag, it was a black Saffiano leather Prada bag. The interior was red. Like it was just the craziest looking bag.
Cool.
And it was so beautiful. And I love that bag for what it was. I wanted it. It was a, very practical, like executive style tote that I could carry to work. And it was like a bag that like would never hold me back in a meeting, that would like look really, really nice.
Yeah.
Every bag I bought after that, I was chasing that same high. And I never found it again.
Never got it.
Never found it again.
Huh.
And every bag after that I bought because some girl in my sorority who was mean to me 5 years ago had it. And I was like, well, she has it, I must have one.
Right.
And it's like, why do I even want this bag? This bag is a weird oblong shape. It's a weird color that I'll never wear or never match with anything that I currently own. The chain on it is too long. I'm going to end up beating this thing to hell. Like, it didn't make any sense. And I never wore them. Some of them have sat in the dust bag for years and years and years. And I didn't love those bags. I beat that Prada bag up.
That's cool.
Like there are scratches on the inside from where my laptop was.
Yeah.
There are marks from where my keys scuffed it. And I'm like proud of that because it was something that I bought that I'd earned with my blood, sweat, and tears. And I did not care if anybody knew I had that bag. It mattered that I knew that I had that bag.
Yeah.
And I didn't need the validation of other people to confirm that it was a good purchase. But all the other purchases I made after were mistakes.
Yeah. So I want to dig into that a little because this is right. You went with no prep, not knowing what would come out. I mean, you went right to the heart of this matter in a way that I think is really important.
Yeah.
You said a few things that I want to dig in on. Let's start with this Prada bag that you described, and you talked about it in your book a little bit. You knew what you wanted. It had a purpose.
Yeah.
It had a reason to be. And yeah, I mean, you probably could have got the same utility out of some TJ Maxx.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I'm actually a big proponent of luxury goods if they're approached that way, because a lot of those luxury goods are truly really well made. Listen, they're overpriced in the sense like it didn't cost that much to make that bag is what you spent for it, but they're truly crafted well. And I'm a fan of buying good stuff.
I agree. But honestly, I think like as a lot of luxury fashion houses have become, mass produced, it's not some Nona in Italy sewing your bag anymore. Like still, like there is machinery involved.
Yeah.
But for me, the luxury purchase really made sense because not of what the actual purse was or even the utility, frankly. Like you're right. I could have gotten a to-go bag from like my local grocery store and it would have served the exact same purpose.
Sure.
But it
Almost.
was what it represented.
Yeah.
It wasn't the purse. It was the fact that I didn't need to rely on my parents anymore. It was, I didn't need to rely on a man to get me this bag. I was my own rich 22, 23-year-old self. And I had realized that through self-determination and hard work, I could obtain literally anything I wanted in my life.
Awesome.
And at the time, my biggest goal was a Prada bag.
Yeah.
But that eventually spurred into, I want to be able to buy a home. I want to own my business. I want to be able to hire people and keep them on payroll and not worry about making sure that they get their paycheck every 2 weeks. At the time, I was 22 and my dreams were smaller and they were a little bit more shallow. I just wanted a bag. But holding that bag in my hand was not just a purse. It was a testament to I don't know, my self-actualization,
Yeah.
my ability to be my own person and be independent, and this fact that I had this internal locus of control that like I could make anything I want happen.
That's cool. I love that. So only buy things you love. You were very clear on what you loved, and you went after it, and you got it, and you afforded it. And I think
I did
beautiful.
a crazy amount of research, by the way. This wasn't like, oh, I walked into the Prada and got it. This was like, oh, I'm going to compare, like, is it cheaper to get it directly from the Prada, or this department store is having this one sale where I can get $200 off? Like, I had done crazy research on this purse, and I had wanted it for a while. It wasn't like an impulse buy. It was, I had researched this bag for months and months and months. I had saved up for it. I had budgeted for it. And I think that's what another differentiating factor was, like, when I finally got it, it was such a moment of like, aha, we like finally achieved this goal, versus like a couple of those bags later on when I had more money were impulse purchases.
Yeah.
I was walking through Soho one afternoon and just happened to spend $1,500, happened to spend $3,000. Like, none of that felt as good.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think it's cool that you came to that realization, that you're honest about it. Because I think, well, listen, whether it's luxury bags, could be anything. It could just be dinky stuff on Amazon.
Yeah.
Just the dopamine hit that comes from buying anything that we can get addicted to.
It's like a slot machine.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I found, so look, it's something that I champion, like, right, that's what we're talking about. Only buy things you love, because especially in this day and age where we're surrounded by influencers of some kind, of every kind, of any kind, on every platform. Stuff is a click away, and you can really kind of get anything, even luxury goods, right? And so I think taking that time to really assess yourself, you know, do I love this? Do I need this? And even with silly stuff on the other end, like, again, little stuff on Amazon, for me, it's all about utility. Yeah. And as I've gotten older and had more experience buying too much crap that I don't need, I've learned to really kind of, I think, hone the craft of buying stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I know that sounds
the
really...
skill of spending.
Yeah, and of really doing self-assessment. I know this sounds like a crazy thing to be going on about, but really kind of assessing, okay, what is it that I'm looking for here? What is the utility I'm trying to fill? I'm not against spending big money on great things. I'm not against luxury stuff, but especially if it's going to be something that is with a high ticket price. I think you owe the world the favor. You owe yourself the favor. You owe the world the favor to be more introspective, be more thoughtful, be more considered. Because just because you can get it now, even if you can, by the way, afford it, doesn't mean you should. You know, I have friends right now. Because look, I'm an entrepreneur. I have friends that are entrepreneurs. They're buying planes, and many of those dudes they're like, oh man, you got to get a plane. You're always flying. I see you checking it. I'm like, I don't want a plane.
You're like, do you know what it costs to change a light bulb on a plane?
It's not even that for me. I mean, yes, all that, right? But like, even just, there's so many reasons that I don't agree with it, and I don't mean to be all moralistic about it, but it's just like, I mean. There is so much, I'll just call it waste, from the fuel to the main, just to move my body around, when the truth is, for what? To save an hour. And so, and look, maybe they're attracted to aviation. Maybe they've dreamt about it since they were a kid. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm saying, I know that for me. Yeah. Just me, Sean. I don't need that. I don't want it for lots of reasons. And I refuse to be cajoled into thinking that I'm supposed to, because I'm the CEO of a public company, or whatever it is. Yeah. And by the way, whether it's through the company or personally, I'm telling you, like, that's what I'm after for people, is to learn to be honest with themselves. And it's okay to be caught flying in coach. Yeah. In fact, for me, I'll use it as a badge of honor. You know what I mean? Yeah. I flew to China because we source products over there. I think I've flown over there 80 times in coach. And
have you really?
I have.
I'm not going to lie. As someone of Chinese heritage, that's a tough flight.
Oh, it's brutal. And by the way, like...
We got to talk about the credit card points so you don't have to do any more about
like,
that. That's tough.
Listen, I'm much older. I'm weaker. I'm
Your
stiff.
back hurts.
I'll go lie flat now. Yeah. But that's as far as I'll go. And I'll make sure that I buy it ahead of time so it's like not crazy. But like, my point is just, for years and years and years though. And I'm proud of that in the sense that I could have, look, I was always the CEO. I could have started at any point but if I'm going to ask my people to do that, it's very hard for me to then do something different.
But also like knowing that our theme for today is like buy what you love, like you wanted to have those extra dollars to essentially buy more time, more resources, more people who are talented to work at your company. And if you're spending thousands of dollars instead of a couple hundreds or even low thousands for a trip to China, like there's an opportunity cost to very literally everything. Yes. Right? Like the opportunity cost of a $6,000 first class ticket versus $1,000 economy ticket to Asia, like $5,000. Yeah, you can't hire a body for $5,000 a year, but does $5,000 a year get you a freelance designer on, maybe one more Lovesac product? Or like, does the course of those flights over a year?
I was going 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So like, there you go.
That's $20,000. Like that pays for some of your, like a month of rent for an office. Like I think we just have to remember that like for every, what is it? I'm going to butcher this because I wasn't very good at physics, but like for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Right. Like for every dollar you spend, you are taking that dollar out of somewhere else. Absolutely. And when I think about how I spend now versus how I spent in my early 20s, when I felt like I was so invincible and untouchable, it's very different because back then I was like, I didn't care that like I was taking money away from future investments. But I'm 30 now and I'm like, well, okay, I'd like to have a family eventually. I'd like to potentially move into a bigger apartment. We thought we were getting a good spot right now, but very quickly grew into it and started to grow out of it. And if we have a tater tot running around, like that's certainly going to be tight in New York City. It's like for every new piece of designer jewelry I get, that's part of the down payment. Yeah. For every new bag I get, which by the way, at this point in my life, I've got a pretty healthy collection. Like I don't need any more bags. Yeah. Like I'm not going to buy something else unless I truly believe it adds to my existing wardrobe, is really going to complement what I already have. And I'm really excited about it. Yeah. And frankly, even at that point, I'm going to use it as a moment to celebrate special occasions or potentially give as a gift to my mom or like someone I really love. I love like, that. There's ways that you can still spend money and enjoy buying the things you want to buy. But you always have to remember, like, there are opposites to your decision of spending. It's like you're not saving, you're not investing, you're not paying down your debt. Yeah, that's money that could be growing, especially in this day and age, man. Like there are so many ways now to grow money more than ever that are, again, just like Amazon, a click away for people. Yeah. Whether it's Bitcoin, which I know you have an opinion. Like certain you coming around to Bitcoin? Well, so first off, I feel like people thought I had this like super negative opinion on Bitcoin. You did call it shitcoin. No. In your book. Okay. So that was a different reference. There was actually a shitcoin out. Okay. It was literally called shitcoin. Oh, okay. And I think for me, I don't have a negative feeling towards Bitcoin, but I think we have to address that like Bitcoin has an incredibly high beta, which is a measure of like an asset's like volatility. Right. And so essentially what that means for everybody listening is that like when the stock market is up, Bitcoin has a multiplier on that. So think about, you're playing a video game, you have a standard coin, you grab a coin, it's worth 1 point. If you have a 4x multiplier, you grab a coin, it's worth 4 points. Yeah. In the same way that like if the stock market is up, Bitcoin has a multiplier on that. So Bitcoin is up bigger. But when the stock market is down, like Bitcoin's going to be down worse. And for many retail investors who don't already have maxed out 401ks, maxed out Roth IRAs in healthy, diversified portfolios that are age and risk appropriate, that are invested in things like index tracking ETFs and bonds and other normal stuff. If the first investment you're making is Bitcoin, you're going to probably lose your shirt. You're probably going to have a bad time. You're going to be on this roller coaster. And that's not what real investing is. Yeah. Right. Like day trading is not investing. Swing trading is not investing. Like trying to like look at moving averages and pick the perfect thing is not investing. That's trading. But like if you want to be a true investor, you better buy and hold, baby.
Yeah.
And so I think like my view on Bitcoin was, for an average person, it makes sense if you have all of these other things done, you can have a little bit of exposure, but I'm talking 1 to 5% of your portfolio.
Yeah.
Don't have it be some huge chunk and have it be like your kids' college savings. They may not get to go to college.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, look, you are the guru on financial advice, but I love the general idea that you brought out, right? That every dollar, every $100, every $1,000 that we spend on anything is money that could be growing and instead is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you better hope that that object, that dead object that you invested in, I shouldn't say invested, that you spent it on, is meaningful to you. And that's really the spirit behind this topic, right?
Yeah.
Like, only buy things you love. And that, by the way, plug for Lovesack. This is why I'm so passionate about what we're doing. We're now coming around to calling it living furniture, right? Because I have Sactionals pieces in my house, older than my children. My daughter's 16. She grew up on some of these pieces, and they're still in our, and of course they're on the 10th set of covers, but it's a living couch, right? You can add the recliner we just recently launched. You can add it to those same pieces, right? So that's my point, is there are better products out there. I consider, selfishly, I consider Lovesack one of those better products.
Yeah.
That if you do your research and if you are considerate and you're thoughtful, you can seek out and buy. That's why I'm not anti-luxury, but I'm also not, like, I love what you said, all the other bags you bought since that first one for you. And that's a really cool insight, because other people can learn from that. And that's the spirit of my book, the whole podcast. Let me save you 25 years.
Yeah.
Like, you could be more thoughtful. there's nothing wrong with buying a $4,000 bag if like it's going to make it for you. But you also teased out one other thing that I want to catch, is the patina. So this is not something that's often talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But do you still have the Prada bag, or okay, so you still have it. And to you, those scratches from your laptop, and that was a different life for you back then.
Yeah.
You're in like a whole new place. But the patina on that bag, to you, makes that bag more valuable today than it even, I think, was.
I would never sell that bag.
Bingo.
Never.
And I have old cars. Like, my daily is a 1970 Ford Bronco.
That's a cool car. That's a cool guy car.
Oh, trust me. Like, I love it. But that's my point. Like, I get in that thing it's like my wife's like, oh, do you mind picking up the kid? I'm already out there. I got a soda in my hand. I'm climbing in the car because I'm happy to drive it.
Yeah.
To do anything, to go to Home Depot, to, pick up the kids, whatever. It makes me happy to turn it on and drive down and so to me, that's something I love. It's not for everyone. It has no roof. It has no doors. I'm not saying like it's practical, and I've spent a fair amount of money trying to, keep it up.
Yeah.
But the patina on it, it's not perfect either. You know what I mean? Like, I have old cars, and I don't try to like wipe it with a diaper.
Yeah.
I drive them.
Yeah.
And they make me happy, and it's the patina of the car. And then frankly, even though I restored them and at one point painted them or whatever.
We've got history. I
let it.
Yeah.
I four-wheel it.
Yeah.
I've rolled it on its side in Moab. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because to me, and some of those scars are there. I'll, generally, it doesn't look like garbage, but I'll kind of leave some of that, because it's the patina that makes something that is truly something that truly has utility, like that Prada bag. If it were just, and this is where I challenge what you said, like, if it were just, a grocery store tote, yeah, you could carry stuff in it. But at the end of the day, that's too poorly designed to really have any value over time, where that Prada bag can. And so this is what I'm getting at, right? Like, in our life, we can be more thoughtful about the things we buy if we first understand ourselves. It all comes back to self-awareness. Like, what does it, like, by the way, there are lots of people who would hate to drive an old car.
Yeah.
It would give them problems. They can't deal with it, whatever.
Yeah.
That's the cost, to your point.
Yeah.
Action, reaction. I have to deal with things that other people don't. No one, texts in anymore like, sorry, my car broke down. Like, it's more rare, but these days. But for me, that's still a real thing. I run out of gas sometimes, things happen. I've chosen that life though, but I know I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Only buy things you love, be more thoughtful about the things you buy. And ultimately, when you do that, you get to buy less stuff.
Well, there's also a really nice quote. It's buy it nice or buy it twice. So I also talk about this in my book. And when I worked on Wall Street, as I don't know if anybody watching can see, but I don't have any pantyhose on right now. They're horrible. They're like little jails for your legs and your toes. And I hate wearing nylons more than anybody. But when you work on Wall Street, it's kind of expected that if you're going to wear a skirt, you're going to wear nylons.
I see.
And
by the way, how did you learn that lesson?
Because I wasn't wearing them. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah. Did someone say something?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A man or a woman?
No, my mentor made a comment,
Okay.
and she was like, "Hey, just like so you know, like you should wear nylons." with
Wow.
this." Yeah. And listen, I get it. It less expected in the summer, but like during like fall, spring, especially winter, but like you should have nylons on.
Interesting.
And so I had, you know, this bad habit of running to the Duane Reade on the corner every single like morning because I wouldn't have any nylons. And I would grab a pack of these like cheapo nylons and I'd wear them. And by the end of the day, there'd be a run in them. And so I'd be like, okay, I'm spending $6 today, $6 tomorrow, $6 the day after that. I like couldn't stomach the idea of getting a pair of really expensive sheer tights or something like $80, $90. But after I did the math of how much I'd actually spent on tights that all had holes in them now, I should have just bought a pair of nice ones that would have lasted and would have been the higher quality that wouldn't have run. And I learned that lesson, and it was my very own like boots moment. Like there's this old story of how like the people who are able to buy good leather boots can wear them season after season.
Yeah.
But if you get a pair of cheapo ones and the actual insole is made out of cardboard, there's a hole, you have to buy new boots every single year. And it's sad, but like, I think there's also commentary to be made that like a lot of the systems in our society are set up in a way that like keep people who are, you know, earning less than in a cycle of constant consumption because of that planned obsolescence of like, hey, those nylons aren't made that well to last you the second wear. This is a emergency nylon. So like in the same way, like if you can't afford the Wolford tights, you will be trapped in a cycle of spending more than someone who could.
Yeah, that's messed up.
If you have the money, you can go in and make the investment and buy something that's nicer that'll last season after season. But if you don't, you're actually spending more money. You're buying more stuff over time. You're contributing to more waste. And you're still not happy because you still have a hole in your tights.
Well, but you have to be intentional and conscious about it. And that's the reason I wanted to, I know this is a really strange thing to be talking about on like a business entrepreneurship podcast. But the weird thing about like you and me, like we just met in person, we're equally consumers. Like of all the things that, like, you know, you have a Chinese background, I have whatever background. Like
you're like, I'm white.
But I'm a white guy. But like all of us, every American is a consumer. And by the way, if you understand the world stage, what's amazing, like for instance, Lovesac is still not international. Why? Because the American consumer is so flipping powerful that the American economy dwarfs basically the rest of the world, all combined. So it's not to say we won't go international, but it's a small opportunity compared to America. And that's built on the backs of every one of us. And what's crazy is, just like your book, and you get into it a little bit in your book, but you know, you identified a hole where people aren't really educated. I don't think anyone's really thinking about buying better. You know, we're just sort of buying stuff. And so I love that you've had this consciousness, you know, this conscious awakening to buying better. It's something I'm super passionate about. Like you're looking at me right now. And just as an example, I didn't think about this, but I'm like I have learned over time, because I'm passionate about this, to be super intentional about everything I wear, for instance. Yeah. Like you'll never see me. This guy's never seen me in anything but a black t-shirt. Because it's literally all I own. I have a stack of black t-shirts.
Is that like your CEO uniform that you're like, I don't want to have decision fatigue, so I wear my black t-shirt every day?
I mean, there's a lot of articles on that. And by the way, all these benefits are real. Like it's liberating when you finally know what you like, what you love, and also what you cannot care about, then you don't have to care about everything. Yeah. So I have so one of the topics I'll talk about in the book is, I call it pick your poison. I have an insane jacket collection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can put any one of my probably 50 jackets over one of these black t-shirts and look a little bit different. I mean, but they're all kind of black and navy and whatever. but that's intentional too, because I think with a jacket like this, as long as I like don't gain weight, and that's also good because I've invested in these 50 coats and some of them are not cheap. So I kind of got to maintain my weight so that they don't all just go the way of the dinosaur. But I think I buy them to be whatever, nice looking, whatever, but not too trendy, because I think I can get 10 or 20 or 30 years out of a good jacket.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them I'll hand down to my kids, because in a vintage store, what's cooler than like a good leather jacket? Not just, it has to be a good cut. It has to be.
Yeah.
And so I know I'm going into great depths on like my wardrobe, but my point is we can be, over time, if we are willing to be conscious about it, we can learn to embrace the things that we care about, like in my case, jackets, and care less about other stuff.
Yeah.
Like I just have a bunch of black jeans, and now they're trying to convince me to get like all my skinny jeans and I want to fight against that. Like I hate it. You know why? It's not physics. There is no force in the universe that dictates, oh, jeans have to be baggy now. That is fake. That is thrust upon us.
Yeah, but the skinny jeans look is out.
I get it. But here's my point. And so look, here I am wearing less skinny jeans, and luckily I had a few of my skinny jeans wear out, so I replaced them with these ones. But it bugs me that I have to do that, because even that is fake. It is a concocted. It's not like there's some.
It's like a fashion narrative. Of
That's
course.
right. And their only purpose is to basically make me change out my entire jean wardrobe.
Yeah.
That I had some money invested in. Not a lot. I
Yeah.
don't spend a lot of money on my jeans. But my point is, on principle, I hate it. And that's my goal, is to like fight against it. Because I think like people are just being conned into buying stuff that isn't even necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So that other people, and by the way, then they weaponize the youth against old guys like me to basically like look at me and be like, oh, you're still wearing skinny jeans. And they're like condescending looks.
Yeah.
They've been weaponized like Maoist, like whatever, activists to basically convince this old guy that he's supposed to be wearing skinny jeans because he's so out of date. And that's the system we live in. And it's crazy that we are all just like lemmings, just like following these trends, when actually and these kids don't even realize that they think they're so hip and whatever. The truth is they're just being manipulated by other old people. Seriously, to wear baggy jeans, to then convince me that I got to wear baggy jeans out of peer pressure. And then we all come around, we buy a whole new set of jeans. But meanwhile, these Timberlands that I finally found, because I have a pair of like Louis Vuitton boots that I'll wear for like speaking events or something. But the truth is, my favorite boots now are these Timberlands. And I think these, so far, I'm like a year into these, they still look pretty good. And that's the power of like a good leather boot. And they're not even that expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so my point is, I am very conscious now about everything I buy. I'm not against spending, good money on good things, but I'm also not against a pile of black t-shirts that when I pack for this trip, if it's 3 days, I take 3 of these, 3 pair of socks. I have all matching socks. I don't do the whole sock thing.
Yeah.
And dude, I can pack for any trip in 90 seconds. 3 of these, 3 of these, 3 of these, I'm out the door. And I love that. And so look, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying I've become conscious about the things I buy. I found it extremely liberating. It's given me more headspace, more money for other things, whether to invest or to do whatever. And I loved reading about some of your opinions in your book on the same topic.
Yeah, I would say like you also want to like listen, like I think your fashion sense is a little austere and that we're only wearing black t-shirts
I'm not
and
saying
jackets.
it's right. It's just me.
But I do believe in the buy it for a reason or buy it for a season.
Mm-hmm.
So I will give an example. I will not name names, but there was a designer brand who made a shoe that looked like a sock. We all know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And I'm going to be honest, like, if people want that thing and people are like, oh, Vivian, how can I get that, like, shoe?
Yeah, that trendy thing.
I'm always like, why don't you find something that looks similar to it that's a lot less expensive? Because I promise you that's not going to be in style in however many years.
Mm-hmm.
That same brand makes a beautifully designed black leather bag with cool metal detailing that's super trendy and will likely be trendy forever because it's like the perfect city girl chic bag. Okay? That's buying for a reason. You are going to be able to wear that for years and years and years and then be able to pass it down. And so I think there's moments where you want to spend money, buy the real thing. And then there are times that are like, hey, if you are just dying to have something, I don't recommend you actually go through with it. I think you should buy something that looks similar and move along with your day.
Yeah. And trust me, my wife is like on the opposite end of the spectrum on this. Like she thinks I'm a lunatic. She's like, it only works for you because you're a guy. Like
that's true, by the way.
Yeah, I respect that. So,
like you can wear the same tuxedo to every single wedding and no one's like, ew, Shawn is disgusting. You are wearing the same tuxedo to every. If I wore the same dress to every wedding I got invited to, people would be like, that girl smells.
Yeah.
Like that girl's weird.
Why is that?
Well, I also.
By the way, it's not just every wedding. It's like 2.
Yeah.
Like my wife refuses to wear the same dress to any big event.
Well, that was the whole impetus to. Speaking of founders and companies that were born out of like a problem, like Rent the Runway.
Yeah,
she was a business student at Stanford, I believe it was, and was going to a bunch of like formals and dances and events and people's weddings and, what have you. And she was so afraid to be seen in the same dress twice and was going broke buying designer dresses and couldn't afford it. And then she was like, I have a genius idea. Me and my friends are going to borrow each other's clothes. And then boom, became an actual startup idea where we can all borrow each other's clothes.
Yeah.
And we can all borrow clothes that, Rent the Runway owns.
I love that.
And then there's companies like Nuuly and like all of these brands that are now popping up and allowing you like, what is it? A Pickle that you can like shop other people's closets. And it gives you this opportunity to be a really mindful spender.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to buy the purple ostrich feather dress because you can very literally only be photographed in it once.
Yeah. I think that those business models are beautiful. We're adopting a similar strategy even for Lovesac because as we invent new things like the recliner, people can use them with their old Sactionals. But if they don't want to take their extra pieces now and build another couch, which I'd love them to do, we're starting to get into the trade-in, trade-up model. And we're not quite there yet nationally, but we're working toward that. And so I'm glad you brought that up. I that wasn't even possible before. And so you don't have to fight the system, right? Like I want to fight the system. I want to tear it down. Like I think like it's just creating a ton of waste. It's making, to your point, these weird social dynamics, especially with women in fashion anyway.
Yeah.
Where they feel like that's manufactured. That's not a real thing. Like if it's a nice dress, what's wrong with, utilizing it 2 or 3 or 4 times? But I know like you're not going to, right? Like, especially at a formal event. I mean, as a woman. And I think that that's a messed up, weird double standard. But we can either fight the system or we can find ways around it, like Rent the Runway. So I love that you brought that up. I think it should be embraced. And I think that, that's what I love about everything you represent in all the information you deliver is that you take these things that have been sort of stigmatized and you just talk about them. You eliminate, like finance, right?
Yeah.
You eliminate the mystery of it. Back to what you were saying about your parents. My parents were very secretive about financial stuff. And so like a lot of kids, we either like become our parents or we kind of rebel. Yeah. I'm the opposite, right? Like I try and be pretty transparent with my kids. Like I said, I've now got my son running my E-Trade account. I'm like, his one rule is like, you cannot buy Lovesac stock.
Yeah.
You're going to get me in trouble. You're going to get me in jail. But because, he's essentially me on that platform. I mean, he checks in with me, but I try not to tell him what to do.
Yeah.
I try to, if he asks me for advice, I'll give him my, Dad, what do you think about this? I'm thinking about selling this and buying that. And I'll tell him what I think, but I'll never tell him what to do. And he's already had, and unfortunately he got into this when the market's been screaming. I say that because, he's like, this is amazing.
He's like, I only make money.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, that's not how that works.
And
but
by
like,
the way, it's my money. And I've told him he can have a small share of like the profits.
He cuts a vig, of course.
Right.
He takes a commission on his hard work.
That's right.
Please.
Right. Like he's my financial manager, right? So he'll get a little vig, but like, but he has had some that he's lost a ton on. And I love it though.
Yeah.
It's like he needs to he's like, Dad, you told me that it would be all right. I'm like, hey man, That's the stock
You win
market.
some, you lose some.
And so I'm actually kind of hoping that he has a few more losses because I need him to. I can't have him just think that you put money in the stock market
and it makes more money because you could lose. But also, like, my big thing is like, your son is like learning skills right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people feel like the route to wealth when people say invest is to like cherry pick the perfect company and the perfect stock. And I hate to be the one to tell you it doesn't exist.
Oh, by the way, I've purposely have him on the individual stock strategy because I need him to learn these lessons.
Yeah.
I've also lectured him that, if it was really about investing, he needs to be ETFs.
Yep.
Hold for long, you know what I mean? But I want him to, I haven't told him this exactly, but I want him to experience the losses. I want him to.
Oh, I've been there. I really thought after my first summer internship, I was like infallible. I was like, I have spent a summer as a JP Morgan trading intern. I now know the entire stock market. I am the smartest person on earth. I really thought that. And you
had a good run.
Yeah, I had a good run. I mean, like, listen, I really thought I was untouchable because I'd gotten the full-time offer after my internship. I beat out 4 other boys for the seat.
Wow, cool.
So like, I was like, oh, I'm the shark. I'm the shark. And during my internship, I was not allowed to trade single stock equities. And during my full-time job, I wasn't allowed to trade single stock equities that I covered.
Mm-hmm.
But my senior year, in between the internship and the full-time job, I was like, I am Rain Man now. I know everything about trading. There's no way I can get this wrong. And so I had to do a summer intern pitch about what stocks in a certain sector, we each picked a sector, that I would buy, sell, and have an options play on. And I had studied this one company for so long, for 10 weeks. And I was like, this is the best pharmaceutical company I've ever seen. Like, this company is destined for great things.
Yeah.
They have this incredible, amazing miracle drug. Like, the research analyst at JP Morgan who gets paid hundreds of thousands, if not 7 figures or more to be right, is telling me that he like validated everything that I said.
Yeah.
And so I buy this stock after I leave my internship. I'm like, everything's amazing. Everything's amazing. I'm making money. Everything's cool. Great.
And this is your own money, or
this was some of my internship, the money that I made from the internship.
Okay.
And I was like, I am so rich. Everything is cool. I am the smartest woman on earth. So turns out when a pharmaceutical company has a quote unquote miracle drug and the miracle drug does not pass phase 3 trials, it actually just becomes trash.
Just zero.
And the stock halved.
Oh.
And I lost half of my internship money. And I look back on that moment and I am so grateful I lost that money.
Yeah.
Because I only put in about $4,000 and I lost $2,000, which at the time felt like the entire world was falling.
Yeah.
Because I'd worked really hard for that money.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it was a very, very cheap and inexpensive time and lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Because had I not learned that lesson then, I would have learned that lesson later on when there were more zeros involved.
And by the way, that swing for you mentally wasn't 4-2. It was 8-2, right? Because you were already counting.
I was counting on the 8. I was counting on the 15. I was like, this drug we're going to go to the moon.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be so rich. I'm basically going to have work 2 internships. I'm going to have so much money.
Yeah.
And it never happened. So.
Yeah, you made a great point earlier, the single stock trading, that sort of thing, Bitcoin, you said it's not investing. And you didn't say this, but it's gambling.
In part, it's gambling.
It's a lot like it too. Just like the same psychology when you're sitting at a blackjack table, if you get lucky, then you're like, oh man, we're going to take this, $1,000. It's going to become 4. That's going to become 8.
I mean, I mentioned this in my book. Like, what I did on Wall Street was true trading. And my mentor would always say this: we are in the moving, not the storage business. Investors are storage units. You are buying something and you are storing it in the storage unit for a relatively long time and hoping that you wake up and, in your later years, you're like, oh my God, I'm on an antique roadshow. This is going to be worth $1 kajillion. Great.
Mm-hmm.
The moving business is, people don't realize that, like, Wall Street traders don't get paid to have the right ideas or the right stock picks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, prop trading is a very specific thing, but like the hedge fund analysts are doing that, but like the actual Wall Street traders are facilitating trades. So say you're a hedge fund. You want to buy a ridiculously high number of shares of some stock to build a position in your book.
Yeah.
I will agree to take the other side of that trade. I'll sell them to you. I'll short or I'll whatever. But I'm getting paid a commission by you per share, typically anywhere between 1 to 3 cents. But like I'm being paid to be a mover, not a storage unit.
Yeah.
Like I'm facilitating that trade for you. And then as soon as I make sure you have your shares, I'm trying to get out of my short position, or I'm trying to make myself flat again. Like for the most part, like I'm not holding the other side of that trade.
Yeah. You're just trying to profit on the transaction.
Correct.
Where,
exactly.
like a true investor, like an individual should think, is in the storage business. And it's really about buy and hold.
Yep.
And so I realize, it's full disclosure, I'm not saying what I'm doing with my son is correct. I'm telling you, but I'm being transparent about what I'm doing. I'm purposely allowing him to buy individual names because I just want him to, because he's learning the lingo. He's asking me now about options. I mean, he's asking me questions I don't even know how to answer.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is he's waking up at 6 a.m. and reading analyst reports. He's 14 years old.
And have him get excited about something like that so early on, I think is so valuable. Like, I did not know what I wanted to be, quote unquote, when I grew up. Like, I fell into finance.
Yeah.
I did not have dreams of working on Wall Street. My Asian parents told me I could be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. I went to the University of Chicago, very well known to be a feeder school for Wall Street. It's the top economics university in the country. Like, I fell into Wall Street because junior year, all of my friends were recruiting for Wall Street jobs. And I said, well, I don't want to feel left out. I'm going to go to these networking events too. Well, I don't want to feel left out. I'm going to look for this job too. Like, I am not a leader. I am a follower. I just wanted to do what my friends were doing. And it just worked out okay for me.
But you were in a good place. You put yourself in a good place where,
of course,
there's worse places to follow friends into.
Yes, of course.
In your formative years. I mean, in my case, I'll be honest. When I was in college, if I'm being honest, I don't think I knew the difference between finance and accounting.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, or even economics. Like, and even though I was taking economics courses and whatnot, I'm saying I didn't know until I moved. I went and lived in Stamford, Connecticut. So all my kids were born on the East Coast outside of New York. We were there for a decade building Lovesac. It's a long story. We moved Lovesac from Salt Lake City to Stamford, Connecticut because we had raised venture capital and they wanted us near them.
Yeah.
And, it was a hard thing to do. I mean, I was from Utah. My family was in Utah, big family. And the East Coast is like another planet, as you know. Like East Coast, West Coast, like almost two different.
I'm born and raised, so it's.
Yeah. But like when you go to California, it's like it's a very different place. You know what I'm saying? And so it was a big move for us, but it was such a blessing too, because everyone in my neighborhood was in finance.
Yep.
And I will tell you, having raised venture capital, having raised private equity, having now taken a company public, and having spent a decade of my life on the East Coast, all the money's in money.
All the money's in money.
All the money's in money. And I'm grateful. Look, I'm a founder of a company. Thankfully we've had a good run. We've had every up and down. I mean, we've had the worst. We had to start over through a Chapter 11 reorg, 20 years ago. So I've been through everything. But I will tell you, getting to do it over again, and I don't even say that like with a lot of nostalgia, because I also think like, and no offense, you were a trader, that's your background. Yeah. I think that the financialization of the world ultimately has created all kinds of wealth and opportunity at the same time.
For a very specific subset of people.
It drags along with it all kinds of issues. Like one of my theories right now is actually that there's just too much money. And I know that's a weird thing to say. Here's what I mean by that. I think, I'd be curious to get your take on this, because I haven't really heard this talked about, and maybe I'm just totally off base. But my perception of one of the problems that we're going to face coming up now. Okay, if you have a pile of money, Vivian, what does it need to do?
Needs to grow.
It needs to grow. Now, 10 years ago even, just 10 years ago, how many $1 trillion funds were there? How many $1 trillion companies were there?
I mean, very few.
I think zero.
Yeah.
Now you have many, many $1 trillion funds, many $1 trillion. These are bigger, single companies bigger than Germany, bigger than Europe. And these $1 trillion funds can't buy Europe. And they all own NVIDIA, and they all own the 7.
Yeah.
So what do they buy next? What do they buy? Where do they go to grow? And so I know this is weird, but I'm actually concerned that through all the lending that's created money and through all the government, weirdness, especially over the last 4 years, COVID, everything, I think there's too much money in the world. And I think it will be starved to find places to grow, to find alpha.
I mean, I think the next place that it's going to go is just private investments. I think for a while, all of the money was pouring into the public equity markets because you couldn't beat a 25%, like annual return, and your money was fully liquid. But in private equity, your money's locked up 5 to 7 years. But if you're at a fund that, has certain types of access based on its size, you're probably doing some things that are making the world a worse place, but you can certainly make a ton of money doing it.
But remember, Vivian, I think there's 200 unicorns with no place to go. 200 unprofitable unicorns, in the private world. So what exactly are you buying in the private world that's bigger than that?
I don't think you're going macro. I think you're going micro. Roll-ups. I'm talking about private equity companies going into small neighborhoods, buying single plumber
businesses. I know,
buying the HVAC.
You're telling me that that's even going to move the needle next to the Mag 7, next to the economy of Europe? I don't. I think there's too much money. I agree that's happening.
Yeah.
And what terrifies me is that they're going to buy all the homes.
Oh yeah.
And then everyone's a renter.
It's about to be United States of Blackstone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then what after that then?
I'll be dead by then. I'm not worried about it.
I got 4 kids, Vivian. The snake has to eat its own tail. And so I didn't mean to go all dark, but as I sit back, kind of a dumb, CEO of a public company that only knows so much about stocks, but I've learned, but as an observer, I think that this is a new problem that we've never faced. So you have all this money. Meanwhile, the government has all this debt. We are in a weird place, Vivian.
I mean, does the government get bought out? Is it privatized? I don't know.
Weird, right?
Weird.
So just food for thought for you. I thought, I like to throw that at some of my finance friends because I know that's a weird place to go, but that's what I'm seeing through my eyes. And I'm not a finance person really. But it intrigues me. So it's food for thought for everyone on the pod. All right. Any last tips on only buy things you love? Anything else that you think we can leave our listeners with? Yeah. I
think we should leave off with a value-based spending equation.
Okay.
So the your rich BFF, is it worth it equation?
Okay.
Is what I like to call it. I don't think people understand the value of a dollar, not in the old Benjamin Franklin-y kind of you don't work hard kind of way, but in the true understanding of what that dollar means to us. So what I always do before I spend money on a good or a service, I actually divide the cost of that thing or service by my hourly take-home pay.
Okay.
Because I don't understand what a dollar means, but I understand what an hour at my desk means very vividly.
Interesting.
I do it a lot. And so now instead of valuing a product or a service in dollars, you're valuing it in time.
I love that.
So say you got a hotel stay one night, it's $350.
Okay.
You divide that $350 by your hourly take-home pay. How many hours would you have to work to be able to afford that hotel room for one night?
Wow.
And now you suddenly realize, oh, okay, yes. If I have to sit at my desk for, call it 4 hours, I think that's worth it for one night of vacation. And I'd be willing to do that for multiple more hours for a week long of vacation. That's great. Great. But, that one pair of, black jeans that I already have one of. I'm not poking fun at anybody in this room, but that one pair of black jeans that I already have something very similar to at home, that also costs an hour of my time. Would I rather have those jeans or would I rather just have that hour? I think it's a really helpful way to value stuff and know what matters to you, because you're going to be willing to spend more of your hours on a 74 Bronco, whereas I'm going to be willing to spend more of my hours on a lay flat business class seat.
There we go. All about knowing yourself, knowing what really motivates you, being really in touch with what you love, what you like, not what others like for you.
Yep.
And dividing it and bringing it down in terms of time. I wonder if how many of those listening even know what their hourly, take home pay is. I'm going to do that math. And I'm going to start doing that division exercise on everything that I buy and encourage people to buy better so you can buy less, live free, enjoy more of your time, because that's the ultimate commodity. So I love that you brought it back there. That, money ultimately will come and go.
But you can't buy more time.
Yeah.
You're born with what you get.
I love that. We all want more money, but you can't buy more time.
Yep.
From Vivian, our rich BFF. Wow, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Where should people hunt you down?
Yeah, you can find me across all social media as Your Rich BFF. And you can get a copy of my book at richaf.me. Yes, I made the URL a manifestation because I believe you deserve it.
Yeah.
So.
And it's so good. Your content, your book is amazing. I recommend it to all of you. And I hope that if we all learn, to only buy things we love, it just may save us a chunk of our own 25-year journey.
That's right.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thanks for having me.
Once a year to take my friends away. It should not be the budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was $2 million in debt, barely hanging on.